Hey everyone, welcome back. This is my second video now. This week, I'm going down to the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve with my buddy Max. The goal of our little 3-day trip is going to be to get some astrophotography shots over the sand dunes. So we'll be camping out there at a little campground about 20 minutes outside of the park. At night, we'll be heading out into the dunes. This is supposed to be one of the best weekends for the Milky Way. So when we get into the Sand Dunes Park, we'll be hiking out west. We'll be able to face east and southeast to get that Milky Way shot over those San Luis Valley mountains down there. For this trip, I'll be bringing my Sony A1 as my primary stills camera, the Viltrox 1.8 16mm prime lens on that. I'll also be bringing my backup camera, which is my Sony A7 IV, my Sony 16-35 f2.8 G Master 2nd edition lens on that. I'll also have the Insta360 X5 camera. I'll also be bringing my Sony 7200 G Master f2.8 2nd edition lens as well. I'm going to start packing up now. We'll head down and pick up my buddy Max. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping to get some good shots. I'm hoping it's all worth it. But even if it's a wash, at least I got out of town, unplugged for a little bit, hung out with a good friend of mine, and just got some time in nature. So, all right, we'll see how it goes. All right, headed to the campsite. We're gonna start setting up camp now. Good morning. So yesterday, after we set up camp, we went back into town, got some groceries. The only restaurant open by the time that we were done setting up camp was Chili's. Came back, packed up our camera gear, and then we drove to Sand Dunes. We hiked for about an hour out. I thought we were gonna make it up to the high dune that's out there. Didn't make it maybe halfway, if that. So we set up at the base of some of the dunes, had the dune in the foreground, some mountains in the midground, and then the Milky Way in the background. But it was sick, saw a couple shooting stars. I think that I got those in the shots. Got back to camp around 2, got up around 7:30, started editing some of our photos, just started editing away. I think we might try and do Zapata Falls here in a little bit, sled on the dunes. Tonight, the plan will be to hike up to the top of one of the dunes, get a couple shots of each other with, like, you know, stereotypical Milky Way shot, right? You got the dune, you've got somebody at the peak of the dune, their headlamp pointing up to the sky with the Milky Way in the background, the mountains, right? I think tonight we might stick around camp a little bit later and try not to get out there until about 11:30, midnight. Milky Way really didn't start coming out until midnight or later. We'll probably spend less time out there, so we'll get the shots that we want now that we've been out there once, and then pack up, and then we're gonna leave here tomorrow. We gotta leave about 11 a.m. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I might have the stick out for the Zapata Falls hike. If we go like sledding on the dunes, I'll pull it out for that as well. So yeah, that was last night. That's been our morning, and we'll see what today brings us. So the first place we set off to was Zapata Falls, which was a fairly short hike. They had some informational boards and displays there near the parking lot, which was fun to read about how the actual sand dunes were formed. But we started making our way up. We were blessed by a dog on the trail, but she didn't really want anything to do with us. So we tried to say hi, but she just kept moving on, no care in the world. The trail to Zapata Falls was, again, fairly short, but it was somewhat rocky and on a fairly steep incline.
Got some pine cones on this.
Took a couple breaks to admire the pine cones and some birds that we saw. Saw a hummingbird on the trail, which was nice.
Oh, I hear it.
And then as we got closer, we could hear the falls and the running water.
They had a nice little informational board near the river that is created by the falls, but we went ahead and started hiking in. So we had to cross this little stream here. Water wasn't very deep, but it was pretty cold, and honestly it felt really good on our feet after hiking in the sun for about 20 minutes. Had to climb this little drainage pipe thing. Had to put the poles down and actually like climb up. Made it through this little chasm here and got a nice view of the falls. It's a fairly small area, so it gets pretty crowded with just a few people in there, but the water was really flowing. You can see there on the far wall it had still the ice. I was talking to this guy here about the falls. He's from the area. But he said that ice never fully melts. It's there year-round, just because in the canyon there, sunlight never really hits it too directly. In the winter, the falls are completely frozen over. You can actually walk on the frozen water there. That's in that pool there to the left. But I went ahead and made my way kind of across that little pool and around along the ledge so I could get a better view of it. So here you can see the actual falls. Pretty massive. I'm not sure if that comes through in the video or not, but the X5 camera was getting hit with some of those droplets from the falls, so I sat it down and then started back over there with my camera to get some photos of it. You can see I'm like clinging onto the edge of that little rock there, and then back around to get some of the perspective of that kind of shorter falls there in the front with the actual main Zapata Falls there in the back. Hiked back out of the little canyon and want to do some long exposure photography of the water flowing over the rocks with that tree branch that's right there. So set up my camera for some long exposure shots with the ND filter. And then also try to get some different angles and shots of the water and the canyon. After Zapata Falls, we made our way to see the sand dunes in person in the daylight for the first time, so we could actually get some perspective. So hiked out in the daylight. The sand actually felt a little softer in the daytime than it did in the nighttime. It felt like we were sinking a little bit more whenever we started hiking in the daytime. But we rented a little sandboard there. I tried it. I don't know if I was doing it wrong or if it's just not that great on a board compared to a sled, but just kind of hopped my way through. Tried it once, didn't make it very far and fell over. Basically gave up, let my buddy Max take the board and go try it on a different hill there. You can see him in the white shirt walking off in the distance. Basically took my time to take some landscape shots of the layers of the dunes in the daytime with the mountain range there in the background. And then made our way back to camp. Went to the grocery store and got stuff to make some chili mac and cheese. After dinner, we cleaned up the campsite and headed back out. Now that we had seen it in the daytime, we're a little bit more comfortable of where we wanted to go and what angles we wanted to see.
Yeah, now that we're walking.
Now that we're walking,
But also, I think it was the same last night. It was much colder in the parking lot than it was out here.
That's true. I think you might be going too far down. I mean, you're only 24, maybe more like right here. I think more like right there. Alright, I kind of went off to the side. That way I can get straight on the mountain. We're over here. There's a Milky Way going diagonal between the two.
Maybe step to your right, like one step. There, yeah. Alright, you ready? 3, 2, 1, back.
After we got our shots, we packed up our camera gear and headed back to camp. We got back to camp around 2:15 a.m., got up around 7:30 in the morning, packed up and cleaned up the campsite, and made our way back to Denver. All right, I am back, and it has been a few days since we've returned. I spent the last couple of days both working on this video and editing the photos that we took while we were down there. I ended up getting the shots I wanted from the outset, but I also got a lot of shots of the sand dunes that I ended up liking, which was surprising to me. At a certain point, a shot of the Milky Way over the mountains looks the same as another shot of the Milky Way over the same mountain range 2 hours later. Whereas the sand dunes had a lot of layering and texture and interesting elements in the midground and foreground and background that I ended up really liking. I ended up getting my shot of the Milky Way over the mountains. I ended up getting my shot of my buddy Max with his headlamp pointed up to the sky. And then I ended up getting a time lapse of about 5 seconds. So 120 photos at 24 frames per second ended up being about a 5-second time lapse video. I'm gonna throw those photos and that video up here and let the video continue to play out. Just want to say thanks again for watching. Hopefully my third video does not take me nearly as long to upload, and I appreciate you all for watching. Take care.